Hey everybody, welcome back to our video. Today we are going to talk all about the items and projects I have made for my home. For those of you who have been following me either here on YouTube or over on my blog or any of my social media platforms, which by the way, if you have not been getting updates or you feel like things are a little slow, I have changed my blog handle and moved platforms and changed my usernames and stuff like that. So check the info bar down below and see if you are still following the correct things. I've made a few videos about this and I have talked about quite a bit, but in case you're tuning in for the very first time after a bit of a hiatus, hook yourself back up is what I'm saying. So today though, I want to go and really kind of pull together and look at what I have made for my home, and I think there's a real good feeling and a good connection when you have an item that is handmade, either by yourself, a little bit DIY, or handmade by someone else and gifted to you. That personal touch I feel like is really important, and definitely for me anyways makes an empty space into a home. So having moved into my first apartment in the last 6 months or so, I've had so much fun finding my personal style, picking out the things I want. Of course, some things I'm going to buy and other things I'm going to DIY. Now, if you have been watching like loads of those redecorating shows and renovations and stuff like that, I watch them too. But I find a lot of those projects really big and a bit overwhelming, and you need tools and lots of space. I live in a small apartment. Like, this is, well, by North American standards, this is a small apartment. So a lot of the things that I have made are on a smaller scale and possibly will be a bit more suited to you and seem a bit less daunting. Anyways, enough chatter, let's hop on to our very first item. Starting off, my very first project is actually what you see when you come through the front door. Now, being in a small apartment and that's laid out more like a studio, I don't actually have a front foyer space, but there is a closet right when you walk in for your coats and your bits and bobs, and in that little space there's a teeny tiny bit of what I would call a hallway. In order to make that space separated into its own thing, and where you take off your shoes, put on your shoes, and then out it's a real high traffic area and can get dirty quite easily and mucked up, I decided I gotta have a front door rug. So I made one. A lot of the ones that I saw outside that you could buy were either really expensive, or the ones that are cheaper are too small and just didn't fit that awkward size space. Instead, I went to the fabric store, where you can find me most of the time, and dug through the clearance bin of upholstery fabrics and found something with a really nice pattern that I loved. It was important to get something that's low pile, which means you can wash it in the washing machine. It's not too fluffy, it's not too thick. You can shake it out, you can wash it, and it just has a bit more softness to it. And because this is the one that's inside the front door, I would have really wet my feet on the outside one. It doesn't need to be like super heavy duty or anything like that, just something to cover that front entrance area. I love it. I initially picked it up because of the pattern, and once I added the trim and everything, I found that the color palette of that front rug really actually matched the color scheme of my apartment. So that was like a nice little surprise I didn't think would happen, but actually worked out really, really well. This is probably one of the easiest DIY things I've done. I just took that big piece, folded in half, sewed it around the corners, the 3 sides, and then just popped some trim on the end. The trim I think really makes it and just brings it alive and makes it a bit more elevated and special. So that's been in the front door, still going strong, no problems with it. And actually, I'm surprised that the upholstery fabric is so hardcore because there's been like no rips, no smudges, like no nothing. It looks essentially brand new. Very, very pleased. What you should know though is if you are planning to do something like that, do put an anti-slip mat underneath if you have laminate or wood flooring like I do. Item number 2 coming at you is what's behind me in this corner right here. I have a awkwardly shaped and sized and placed window, if you will, if you call it a window. It's an opening in the wall that connects my bedroom to the kitchen. I believe it's for fire and safety purposes. If you have an enclosed space, you must by regulation have an open space big enough that a person can escape from, which essentially means if my bedroom ever catches on fire and the sprinkler starts coming, I can always escape to the safety of my kitchen through this hole. But it ended up eventually being a bit annoying. I didn't like the way it looked, but more importantly, when I started cooking often, which I enjoy doing in my place, all the fume starts going everywhere because the air vent and the fan in the kitchen in apartments just aren't that great, and especially they're not made for Chinese cooking at all. The fume just kind of circulate, and I didn't want all of that smell to go into the bedroom. So I put up that little curtain thing and made it a bit of a DIY, but it's actually really quite simple. Start off with a tension rod. Easy to buy anywhere. I bought mine personally at Daiso. I already had that from something else I had in my old place, and I just went to the clearance section of my local fabric store. You'll notice the fabric store is a recurring theme, and I bought some clearance fabric, and it is that semi-sheer quality. It essentially, I believe, the same type of stuff that they use for commercial curtains as well. And I put a trim on the bottom. I think trims just make everything that extra special. You know, it's a teal tassel trim. It's really fun, but it has a purpose as well. The trim actually weighs down the curtain because the fabric is so thin and floaty. It kind of just puffs out. For the first wall, I didn't have any trim, and then once I added the trim, it really gave it weight and it hung a lot better and just prettier looking. Not to mention, it's just nice to have things with trim, and it makes everything look a bit more like elevated and special, right? With that little extra sparkle with the trim. So that ended up being a really good DIY that I didn't initially want to do, but worked out very, very well. You'll notice that the color is a bit off from the color of my walls. I could have gone more matchy-matchy, but I was in the store. I didn't have a reference sample of my wall paint. I just went for it. But I think it turned out really nicely, and it's a great balance between contrast and also harmony with my sage green walls. All right, the next thing that I'm going to show you, I can actually show you because they're small. One of the first things I made when I moved in was I wanted, of course, some hand towels and some kitchen towels. I found a lot of the ones from places you can buy them, you know, like HomeSense and Winners. Some of them are cute, but a lot of them were just a little bit too trendy for me, number one. And number two, if it's printed and screen printed, I don't expect them to last a long time because a lot of screen printing does peel once you wash them. And hand towels and kitchen towels, tea towels, you will wash them very frequently, and I wanted mine to last. Now, I found this linen cotton blend fabric in a large gingham check or buffalo print check at my local fabric store, and I bought about a meter or so of this, and I made it into a set of hand towels. So I've got two for my kitchen, and I've got one in the bathroom, so that's the correlating color scheme. And because it's black and white, it really kind of goes and matches with anything. Then I was, of course, in IKEA, and I bought a set of just very inexpensive tea towels, kitchen towels. So this is more for like cooking and, you know, wiping your semi-messy hands, and this is for like washing up your hands and you have clean hands, right? And even though they are different, they still kind of go together because of the print and the check. I really love the hand and the feel of this because it's a cotton linen blend. I also expect it to last for a long time. It's easy to wash, easy to care for, so I'm actually pretty thrilled about my hand towels, gotta say. Next up is also something that I really love. Now granted, I know I just said that about essentially everything I've just shown you so far, but that's the thing when you DIY, you really love all the things that you make because that's the reason you made them in the first place. So our next item is a large scale painting that I had done over the summer when I first moved in here. I know I wanted something that was colorful, some kind of an art, but I wasn't into a lot of the, how do I say this? I wasn't into a lot of the things that were available out on the market that, you know, in a lot of those places like Winners or HomeSense, or like they're pretty and all, but they didn't feel personal, and it wasn't quite what I was going for. Now, being an art history major, I've looked at a lot of art, and I've always admired the work of Mark Rothko. If you are not familiar with him, I'll pop a few links down below in the info bar. He is an American artist. Now, while I'm not generally into kind of modern, postmodern that kind of stuff, I was really drawn to Rothko's work, and I've seen some of his work at the MoMA in LA, and they really spoke to me, and I love them. So my artwork is kind of loosely inspired by the style of Mark Rothko, but I use a different set of colors, and you know, I was less fussy about like how the shapes went and all the blending and stuff. It's a loose inspiration, but I really love it. I love that it brings so much color into my space, and you know, this mantle plays right between the edge of my mantle and the high ceiling. Is a large space. I believe it's initially meant for a TV, but I don't have a TV. I don't plan on getting a TV, so instead that mantle became my decorating experiment. However, I wanted something that was large, that took up more of the space, that had more presence, and I thought this artwork was perfect. I had a lot of fun painting it. I will put a link down to the vlog where I show myself painting this artwork, and it brings me a lot of joy. I just like it, and it makes me smile when I look at it. It goes really well with a lot of my other decor pieces, brings some color into my space, and it really grounds that large empty wall area. So definitely thrilled about my Rothko inspired artwork. Last thing I have to share with you is something I've been working on for so long. It's embarrassing because I've been chugging along at this, and then I got discouraged, and then I feel like I could never finish this. Is too much work. But then I really started, and I paid money for it to get going, and you know how hobbies go. It is my sleepy animal quilt. Now that it's done, I love it. Absolutely. It's so cute. It makes me so happy, and it's so functional and useful. It makes me smile every time I use it. But the journey to making this quilt was really challenging. While I do sew, I do not quilt. So this is my very first quilt, and I think I was kind of overwhelmed, and I underestimated how much work it takes to make a quilt. And then even though I took the easy route out, my quilt is essentially one large printed block piece of fabric in the middle, and then everything else was not pieced together. It was just stitched onto a larger backing piece in the background border color, and then trimmed in bias trim, and that's it. But even with that, it was so much work because I had to do some hand sewing in the middle and stuff like that. Once you see the details, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But really though, initially I fell in love with this fabric print that was, I think, an Illustrator collaboration. I have to kind of go and look up who is a collaboration with, and I'll put all the info down below. I fell in love with the print. I'm like, I gotta have this print. I gotta make something, you know, with it. But it was so expensive, and I didn't want to buy that much of the fabric. So I bought 2 panels of the sleepy animal print, and then I framed it in a larger piece of fabric, which was again from the discount aisle of my local fabric store. So all the rest of that was really cheap, and then I bought batting and all that stuff, and it was my first time making a quilt. I probably will not make a quilt again, but I love this quilt. It's the right weight, it's the right size, it's so cozy, and again, the print and the color and everything just makes me smile. It adds a bit of whimsy and fun to my apartment, and I just keep it by the sofa. Sometimes I'll use it when I'm just chilling on the couch and lounging around. Sometimes in the winter time, I'll put it on top of my duvet bedding in my bedroom on my bed, and that works really well too. So love that. Would not make it again. Well, I would make the same thing again, but I would not make another quilt. I'm just not cut out for quilting. So there you are, everybody. Those are the current handmade things I have in my home. I hope you enjoyed this talk through. I was hoping really to be able to hold up and show you things, but again, space and lighting and stuff just didn't work out. So hopefully the cutaways gave you a clear idea of the items I was talking about. And again, you know, here's a little nudge. Do some DIY of your own. I think it's so rewarding, and as you can see, I gush about all of these items because they make me so happy, and they're so colorful, and they really feel personal. I think that's the important part. Things that you DIY feel really personal, and I think that's so important in your own personal space. With all that said, drop me some comments. Let me know what you've been making. Like, are you a crafter? Do you do things with your hands? Do you sew? Do you quilt? If you quilt, leave me a comment. Tell me about the quilt situation that I made. Like, what did I do wrong? Is it like okay? Is that how quilting is supposed to be? Say something. Do you woodwork? Do you whatever that you do? I'd love to hear about your handcraft home or handmade home, and maybe share some of your favorite ideas as well. I would definitely be continuing to be making some DIYs for my place, so look out maybe for video 2 of handmade home. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.